Big Questions with the Dead Milkmen.
Welcome. On Big Questions today, we're revisiting a topic that Dean first brought up in an early episode. It was September 2020, one of those episodes of Big Questions, when he asked, will artificial intelligence take over the world? Perhaps you've seen that one. And asked us to read an essay written by artificial intelligence in the Guardian about artificial intelligence. In the Guardian. Well, since then, there's been an awful lot of hype about AI, artificial intelligence. So I figured I would ask a different question about it. What are your thoughts on AI as it relates to your future as a musician, songwriter, and human being? Is it a threat or an asset? Personally, I don't feel threatened by AI, at least not right now. I know, as a musician anyway, I know that if I understand it correctly, it's able to it could take recordings of my voice singing, enough of them, maybe they're already publicly available enough, I don't know, and then have me sing someone else's song. I don't know, some other singer would sing, and then they would somehow meld that into my voice and have me sing a song that I may not care to have sung. And it may happen after I've passed away as well. And in fact, somebody today played me a Kurt Cobain singing a cover of a Cranberry song, telling me that he never could have sung. I guess he never sang. He's been dead since, I don't know, 90 something. And I guess that's concerning in a way, although I don't think anybody's going to go to the trouble to do that with me. Though you never know. I suppose it could be a threat in that regard, especially if I'm singing a song I dislike. As a songwriter, I still haven't really heard a song supposedly written by AI that I like. I don't think it's a threat to me as a songwriter. There is a famous song that's the Nirvana song that was written by AI for a charity album, Drowned in the Sun. And it was trained on all the Nirvana songs. And it came out with something very convincing, but I don't think it's that good of a song. And it's sung like him because it was sung by a real person who's a Kurt Cobain impersonator. I'm sure there's plenty.
Hope he doesn't have any firearms in his house.
Yeah, as a songwriter, I personally don't feel threatened. I don't know who's going to want to take my style anyway and have a new one of my songs, or a Dead Milkmen song for that matter. Who knows? It could happen. As an asset, I don't think I would use it personally. As a songwriting collaborator, I would primarily be afraid that it would plagiarize something I wouldn't recognize, and then I'd be in trouble or get sued. But also, primarily, I don't want to, because I prefer collaborating with human beings. I think it's kind of creepy I haven't even tried it, to ask Chat GPT or whatever. That's the engine, I think, that's doing a lot of the stuff. To write a song with. So I would not use it as an asset. I say no. As a human being, when I answer Dean's question about AI taking over the world, I say no, I don't think it will take over the world. But I guess I can see how it could be used by somebody in an evil kind of way to maybe escalate a conflict into a war with deepfake video, that's another party doesn't check immediately or can, or it could be maybe beheading of somebody who is kidnapped by a foreign state, bad actor, whatever. That I can see as a potential threat in how it's used. But as an asset, it's giving the world one final Beatles song. So I think that trumps everything, in my opinion, to get another Beatles. And as far as humanity is concerned, I think it also will do a lot of good. there's a lot of good that can come out of AI assisting humans. You know, it's weighing one over the other. I'm an optimist, so I think it would it would overall be an asset. And that's the end of my little speech. On to you, Dan.
First of all, Joe, you know you have recorded on albums that had used AI for some of the songs.
I did. Oh,
I use Riff Machine every now and then just to keep my skills going to help me write songs. You basically give me, if I get stuck, I get an idea. Now, what I write isn't taking exactly what the Riff Machine generated, but the Riff Machine is a form of AI. So, and I've been using it since we got back together. Once every couple of weeks. Now, I'm not saying I don't put in my chord progression, have the Riff Machine create a riff, and then use the exact riff. I go in, I think sometimes move this and that around. But if you're saying anybody here is saying I would never buy a Dead Milkmen album that had used AI, looks like you have.
I bought that album, didn't I? Oh well. Anyway, Dan.
I don't know. I feel like it's probably already being used for like some of the shit that you hear in the Wawa gas pump. Like every time I walk into some kind of store, I hear that, like, you know, first, fifth, minor sixth, major fourth. There's some like a ukulele. There's somebody whistling and some gang vocals saying, "Hey!" And I feel like they just put a whole bunch of that stuff together, and that's all we hear anymore. So I don't feel threatened by it, because I feel like people can, I don't know, I think people will, now that people are more aware that it's a possibility of being fake or whatever, like maybe they'll do a little more research. I'm actually kind of fascinated by it though. Like a couple of weeks ago, Junius showed me this thing. It was called Nothing Forever. And it was an AI had been fed tons of Seinfeld scripts.
Yes.
And somebody had taken, the Roblox game?
I do.
They took that format and they put like the blocking and stuff from the scripts.
It's off the air now.
Yeah. It's fascinating because there are parts of it that are like totally just like the characters from the show, but then there's like non sequiturs, and then there's like awkward times where the canned laughter happens, and then something really funny happens. It's amazing, violent. And it got me thinking, of course, this is a fascinating topic, but it got me thinking, like, what is the potential for that? And what if I took my own stuff and put it all into like an AI thing instead of other people, and just see what it would come up with for like a song that I could make, and see how far off the mark it is or not. I almost feel like people, like Rodney was just saying, like we've used it on Dead Milkmen stuff. Like I feel like people will have like maybe in the future will have an obligation to say when they've used it, but yeah, I love the idea of randomly generated things, especially with music anyway. I think I talked probably on one of these big questions before about that idea I had to like take what I experimented with it. I recorded a note, and then I recorded another note, and then I made a CD of it, and I put it on shuffle and repeat. And it was these different notes, and it just was an infinite combination of them. I think there was like 12 or 13 tracks. And I was entertained by it, but so I don't know. I don't feel like I can see why it feels like a threat, and I feel grateful that I'm not like a celebrity that somebody's going to be taking my stupid voice and making anything with it. I feel pretty confident in that. Although I have seen there's some people have posted some like stuff on Instagram with us from these big questions. Probably like right now, someone's gonna do it. All right, so that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. I don't particularly see it as a threat right now, but I'm also not particularly interested in using it to write music. I'd much rather get in a room, I think, like Joe, with instruments and other people and work together and collaboratively, try and come up with something. And I find it strange, and Joe, I have to be honest, and I forgot that I had asked this question a few years ago, but in doing research for this show, I find it strange that the articles that I'm going to link to and reference are all articles, they're like from 4 and 5 years ago. It's like the mainstream media finally just decided that they wanted to talk about AI for some reason. And so these articles about particularly music and AI came out a number of years ago. So the first one I'm going to mention is from 2019, and it's a Google Arts and Culture post about a Barbican Centre exhibit, which is a art space gallery performance venue in London. And they had an exhibit that showcased 12 songs created by AI. They had artists use AI tools to create a song, and there's a video for each one of them. You can go and watch them. You can listen to them and decide if they're compelling to you. I personally didn't find much of interest in there. I mean, even one of my, I like Brian Eno, and he has a piece in there, but even that didn't really thrill me that much. The other article, the next article was written 5 years ago, and it actually references one of the artists in that Google article. Her name is Taryn Southern. And in this article, like Rodney, she uses it to generate ideas, and then she'll take the chord patterns and the rhythms, and she'll rearrange them and do things with them. So she uses it as an inspiration machine. That being said, the song video for that this article references, one of her songs that came out 5 years ago. It's still, it's just pop fluff that doesn't particularly interest me anyway, even though it was created using a sort of novel idea with AI. And then there's an article that has links to 11 different music generating AI tools. And I'll say that one of the pieces of software mentioned in this article is companies is Izotope, and I actually use Izotope plugins in my DAW. I don't use it for music creation, but I use it for EQ and mastering help. So it will analyze my recordings and make suggestions about, the way it should sound as far as the EQ levels and the loudness and that kind of thing. So I use it as a tool to help me, in theory, try and make my music sound better, but it's not writing the music for me. So, I'll link to those articles. So I think it's developing. I don't feel threatened by it. It's interesting, but it's not something that I'm actively doing research on or trying to use it to write music right now.
Well, I think the reason the media jumped on it in the last couple of months is you began to get a proliferation of people being able to afford the tools and use them. So you had the big Drake song, where the guy used the Drake filter and, and then sounded like Drake. And then by some coincidence, he was being filmed while he did it, almost as if the record industry knew this was going to be a big thing and wanted to get out there ahead of it. All right, so I'm going to reiterate probably some of the stuff I said a month or so back when I recommended that you folks check out episode of the Your Favorite Band Sucks podcast called AI Music Sucks. I'll have a link, go back and check that out. But also make sure you check out last week tonight's incredible piece on AI, the one that had the Eminem cat song, the one in which they rhyme house with spouse, even though, as John Oliver points out, mouse was right there in front of you. All right, so if you're watching this right now and you're in like a pop punk band or alt rock or wimp rock or shit rock, whatever you want to call that stuff, you're fucked. You are fucked because this stuff can do what you do quicker and better. And the stuff is getting better every day. And the reason you're screwed as opposed to, let's say, pop music fans don't really care if a robot writes their stuff or not. Most pop music actually is written, 70% of the hits on the charts are written by one guy. And the music industry goes out of their way to make sure you don't know that. So I might get shot while I'm telling you this. But alt rock and stuff like that has a veneer of authenticity. the people that listen to that shit like to believe that, you know, these people are playing everything and writing everything in a garage. Trust me, they're not. So we're going to, if you're a fan of that music, you're going to be suffering some cognitive dissonance soon, because you're going to be listening to this stuff and asking yourself, was this written by an AI? It's what we call the Lana Del Rey effect. For some of you younger viewers, back in the early 2000s, there was a completely no talented performer called Lana Del Rey. And people who read Pitchfork and stuff like that used to talk about how great she was. You can't find any of them now, because what happened was it eventually came out. They had her on Saturday Night Live. She fell flat. The record industry actually made the entertainment industry made Saturday Night Live put on a sketch where they made fun of people who made fun of her. It turned out later on that she had previously worked under a different name, and that her father was a millionaire with connections in the entertainment industry. So yeah, she was a Nepo baby. So all of a sudden, it was great to watch all these people that talked about how interesting she was act like they were holding a turd behind their back, going, I don't smell anything. I don't. So I was having the time of my life watching this all burn down. I'm going to have the time of my life again, watching a bunch of shitty bands now, alternative bands have to come up. You know, people are going to be saying, well, wait a minute now, your dad is a executive vice president at Raytheon, and yet you are singing all these songs about growing up in a poor working class neighborhood. Were these written by a robot? This is going to be so much fun. And guess what, people? Your record company, they're going to screw you good. Because they're going to look at your 6-piece band and they're going to say, what's this costing us? We could strike a deal with one of them and just, have a AI write the songs, say he wrote them, distribute the money however they want. They just have some people play live. And if you're wondering about the music sound, it's all there. You just need, like Dan talked about, sampling, and having it do random notes, stuff like that. That's now that, that the AIs can take any sort of sound you want and put that together in a matter of seconds. Dan talked about the music that they play at the gas station and stuff. If you write that stuff, you're out of a job because the AIs are writing it now. And for a long time, by the way, I thought most pop punk was written by a robot, because it's like we're living in one of the most turbulent times in American history. And these songs like, I don't like my postman, he's so mean to me. I'm like, yeah, I bet you a robot could write a better song than that. Yeah, and the thing is, the curtain's about to be pulled back. I've been going on and doing interviews for decades, and people go, it's really difficult to write a song. I'm like, no, it's the not writing a song is difficult. Writing a song is easy. You folks are about to find out how easy it is to come up with songs. You will use this software and you will say, wait a minute, I've written a better Dead Milkmen song than the Dead Milkmen. And you'll put our voice filters on it, Joe or me, or actually everybody on here has been on one of those. And you will have your own Dead Milkmen song. That's coming. So if you're a musician, you better get some other skills. Speaking of other skills, folks, you notice that this is all art, right? Whenever you see the AI, it's the AI making a picture, making a song. The AIs don't seem to scrub toilets, do they? Scrubbing a toilet is a skill, and the AI don't have skill. You musicians want to learn a skill, learn to scrub some toilets. Trust me, I scrub the hell out of a toilet. So we're all technically screwed. Also, I see musicians go, well, it'll be a tool. No, it won't. Real musicians never use tools. I'm the only one here who's actually used the riff machine. This band is 3 musicians and 1 non-musician. Of all the people on this, the only one who's actually gone out to ChatGPT and had it create some songs and check all this stuff out, me. I think I'm also the only one using riff machine. Brian Eno, an example of this is, as I say, computers did put people out of work, except for people that learned to program the computers. Brian Eno, when the DX7 put musicians out of work. You didn't need to have somebody come in and play the oboe. You actually would have the DX7 oboe sound, which I like better than a real oboe. But Brian Eno would throw away the manuals. Some people say he couldn't read, but I believe he could. He would throw away the manuals and just go in there and just program on the fly, and he would create really interesting sounds. Programming interesting sounds, because remember, the AIs are good at picking up stuff that already exists. but they're not very, you're going to have to say, all right, I would like to sound like this track, but I'm going to need you to go in and I'm going to, here's a synth, program a sound that nobody has. Your best bet is to be in the sound programming department. We might talk about that later. What I did was I said that I went out and checked it out. So we're going to put up a little thing right now. I had to generate a song in the style of Dead Milkmen, and it generated a song called Loser's Anthem. And it's terrible, but it's accurate because we've written more terrible songs than good songs. And you could pass it off as an early Dead Milkmen song. We'll have it. I hope it's up on the screen now. You can see some of the words. I was thinking about actually making a Dead Milkmen song out of it, but then you have the legal questions, who owns the lyrics, all that stuff. But the other thing I did was I asked it to do a song in the style of Pink Floyd. So what you're looking at now is the ChatGPT song Floydian Echoes, and it is better than any Pink Floyd song. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a song in the style of Pink Floyd. I may even use the riff machine, put in, what I'll do is I'll go over to Songster, check out what some of the tempos and chord changes are that Pink Floyd does. I'll get some of those. I'll use the riff machine, and I will create at some point a Pink Floyd song for this. Of course, I'm already 3 or 4 projects behind stuff, so I don't know when you're going to see it. So we talked about, Joe talked about putting one person like Kurt Cobain's voice over top of the Cranberry song. This is where non-musicians like me are going to shine. We are going to have so much fun. What we're going to do is we're going to make things like Bob Dylan sings the best of G.G. Allin. Or this is one I thought of, NWXTC, a mashup of NWA and XTC. Straight out of Swindon, and do a Partridge Family album of future pop songs, and you could call that Partridge Family AD 2200. My take on this is I go with the theory of what Gary Newman used to say when people criticize samplers, sequencers, and synths. You say synthesizer, sequencer, sampler. Who cares? At the end of the day, did you like the song? And if a machine can write some songs I like, I welcome our new robot overlords. I'm with the pop music fans. I do not care. I do not care if it's written by a machine or not. Now, in fact, it'll probably be better than 90% of the crap out there. Now that I've given you that little fun bit, I'm going to scare the shit out of you. What's going to happen, and will happen, and has sort of happened with AI is this. People are going to weaponize it. And the people who weaponize it, people who are going to have AI farms, are not the people who are interested in giving you free healthcare or lowering your rent. It's going to be some billionaire who finds that democracy is getting in the way of him living his dream. So you might be online on Facebook, or maybe your kid's online playing a game, and where they have the chat and everything, and you're going to make a new friend. And this new friend, he likes all the same, or she likes all the same stuff you do. It just happens to come in casually. And it'll be like, oh, hey, you like IMX. Wear an IMX hat. Oh, hey, I'm a big IMX fan. You start talking to them. If I owned a company and I didn't want people to strike, I would hire somebody to go out, find all the workers who are online, give them this new best friend. And the new best friend will feed them bullshit. Like, hey, did you know that striking actually brings down your wages? It doesn't. But that's a talking point that was punted around. There was reason, and if you don't think this is going to happen, by the way, a company hired a fake priest to take confessions of people who might strike. So this is going to happen. You folks might remember the episode of where I got to drop my pants and shit all over PragerU's talking points for what was that, cancel culture, and then mysteriously in the comment section appeared all these bozos who had never watched the show before, but somehow managed to find it. That's because a lot of people, organizations have web crawlers out there. They look for these topics, and then they sort of get their army out there. So all the talking points are the same. We only have like 6,000 people that watch this show, but still, imagine an army where you don't have to get some guy who, well, I guess he's never going to get a girlfriend, but a guy who's like in his basement and he's got to eat and go to sleep at some time. Imagine a constant army of stuff just strolling through this and spitting out opinions. And not to be smart, a lot of you people watching this aren't smart enough to know you're being bullshitted on. And if you're not smart enough, I know your kids aren't smart enough because the stupid don't fall far from the tree. So yeah, that is my big fear. I think what's going to happen is, we keep getting the budget to fight this information cut. And I think there will be an army of AIs out there becoming your best friend and making suggestions to you about how to make billionaires happier.
I'd like to recommend an album, a music album by the band Depeche Mode. It came out in March. I'm just getting around to recommending it. It's called Memento Mori, and it's the first album that doesn't have Andy Fletcher on it because he died, and sadly he died. He agreed to take part in this album. Like I say, he planned it before the pandemic. He passed away before he heard any of the demos or anything. I read this, and but so it's the duo of Martin Gore and Dave. And Martin Gore could have gone to ChatGPT to write some Depeche Mode songs for our new album, but no, he didn't. He actually went to Richard Butler. Richard Butler co-wrote a bunch of these songs from Psychedelic Furs, and I like Psychedelic Furs actually. And I like this album. It is dark, but also upbeat in a weird way. And Memento Mori means in Latin, remember you will die, or death is inevitable, in other words. And it does have that in the songs. The themes are about the inevitability of death, and more so not because Andy Fletcher died, but because of the pandemic, they say. But it's pretty good. Check it out. Thanks.
And Richard Butler had a song called The Ghost in You. That's what we call an R and non drop, people.
I would like to recommend a band that somebody just messaged me on Instagram recently telling me to check out their band, and they're pretty good. They're called Strange Velvet, and from what I listened to, it was kind of cool, like kind of almost like Stooges kind of punk stuff, but then also some stuff with like acoustic guitar and kind of like 60s sounding. But yeah, it's cool. Check them out. Strange Velvet.
I'll continue the music by recommending a band from Chicago called Stuck, and they have a new album out called Frequency. And they remind me a little bit of a cross between XTC, Brainiac, and maybe even Devo at times. You can find it on Bandcamp, of course, and my favorite track is called Break the Arc.
And I've got to hurry because we've got like 4 minutes here. So let me run through this. First of all, over on my channel, there's a cover that I did of Editions of You by Roxy Music. This is a song everybody should cover because you learn a lot from doing it. It's a song that breaks all the rules, but also follows rules. I was fascinated by it. And it got me thinking, because the same bass pattern runs through it, it got me thinking about minimalism. So I'm going to recommend part 1 and part 2 of Tones, Drones, and Arpeggios, The Magic of Minimalism. It's really, really good. An hour each, and folks will love it. And you'll want to go visit the Magic House in New York. All right. So the last thing I'll recommend is, hey, folks, experiment with some FM bass. I have all my old books from the 80s. And I have, if you have like a Korg Volca, or even if you have any sort of FM soft synth, I have the old original synths. But I forgot how much I love FM bass. And hearing it, there's a hauntology to it, where it's that sort of like 80s, something's not quite right. It doesn't have that warm nostalgia feeling. But I was working on some music for Halloween, working on a song about dancing under the Goatman Bridge, use the FM bass for it, and I'm super happy with it. So I'm just recommending, and not only that, but if you're a musician, learn how to make sounds, because I don't care how well you can sit down and play Rachmaninoff, your job is going away. Tune in next week when it's just robots doing it. And it'll be better.